You're listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Now, it is time to break it down.
Welcome to episode number 46 of the Sonny Brown Breakdown. I'm your host, Sonny Brown, and in this episode, I talk to Priit Mihkelson. Now, Priit is a bit of a regular on the show, you could say, and he's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt coming from Estonia, and he's got a lot of interesting, unique takes and, a different perspective on a lot of the things we do in Jiu Jitsu training and martial arts training in general. So he's always making for a fascinating interview. He's recently moved schools into a different facility known as Jiu Jitsu. So we talk about how he went about that process, and knowing that, I wanted to discuss with him his ideas on rankings and belt systems in Jiu Jitsu, because I thought for sure he'd have something to say about that. And yeah, I think it makes for an interesting conversation, especially in the second half. We kind of move on to a discussion about titles and kind of the hierarchies involved in Jiu Jitsu and martial arts instruction, which makes for a great kind of in-depth bit of discussion about that. And yeah, be lovely to hear feedback on that, what you guys think. If you want to send that feedback through, the email is sunnybrown@gmail.com, or on Instagram, where I'm sunnybrownbreakdown. And good news is, it looks like I've got a podcast editor sorted out, so hopefully from now on I will be moving to perhaps weekly shows. Let's start off with fortnightly and sticking to a regular schedule. And also, if you want to support me, the Patreon, which is slowly ticking along, is patreon.com/sunnybrown. And without further ado, let's go to the podcast. G'day, Priit. How are you today, mate?
So far, so good. It's an early morning, 2 o'clock. So
lots going on in your world since last we spoke. With had the debate between you and Andy, which was got some great feedback on that. Everyone was amped up over that. And I think since then you've had a baby, so congratulations on that, on the newborn. And also started a new gym, I believe. So it's no longer 3D training.
Yeah, we went apart, and now we have a Eštum Jiu-Jitsu club. It's an old name of Estonia, Eštum Jiu-Jitsu, and we just do Jiu-Jitsu. And I guess, whatever, the wrestling later, but it's just all grappling.
Okay, so there is some plans to put some wrestling in there, get some Estonian.
Yeah, definitely, just away from all the striking arts.
And so when you've opened up that new place, was there any changes that you made yourself in opening up that place, or was it just taking your old program from the old gym and just transporting it over to the new one?
Yeah, right now we don't have our own place, so to speak. We're renting times because, we did this change, I think, during June and stuff. So all the pandemics and everything, the uncertainty was so high in the air, so we didn't want to get our own place, and we were like, okay, let's just rent, and its risks are low. So at the moment we're at the same place where actually we were before our big gym, so it's kind of close to the gym we had. So we're renting times, and seems like times are more stable, so in some point we start to look also again for our own place. Now we know the experience has been in a way that wonderful, that I know more what I want and what I don't want, so in that sense it was all worth it. But what comes to program, I think Jiu-Jitsu-wise, only thing I think what we changed, I think, is a beginner's course. That we still do it 2.5 months, 10 weeks, 20 classes. But now we only have 2 finished participants at the moment. So we're still testing. And the people that have finished it, they're not average people, so to speak. They're a little bit like a sport background, some. So it's too early to make conclusions how everybody else do. But what we do there is we only teach submissions. Like literally every class is a submission. So it's a 1-hour class. Maybe in the future we change it to 1:15 or something. So 10 minutes first, 10, 15 minutes is defensive structures. For the warm-up, they go over each class something, not everything in one class, but some classes turtle, some hawking, then it's running man, grilled chicken stuff. So they don't learn the technique or something, but they'll just learn the structure and maybe connect them to each other. So just as a warm-up, moving around a bit. So that's what we want. They know after a beginner's course the defensive structures that they just can make better during time. And then even more than 2/3 of the class is just submissions. And it's no gi and gi class. So we teach them I just start with a shock first. We teach them inside heel hook, outside heel hook, calf slice, toe holds, hakilios, knee bar, tarikaplatas, the kimuras, omoplatas, triangles, of course, arm bars, north-south chokes, like 20 class, just all submissions. And because the reasoning is interesting, because we're testing it, of course, I'm not saying it's the best, but the outcome has been actually quite interesting. But why we did this is, first of all, we want people to be safe. And it's very common that, beginners get to leg lock situation and they spaz out and they turn. So we want them to be aware that, this is time to tap, example. Because in our gym, we allow leg locks pretty early and we do heel hooks in a gi also. So I don't like IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu. I just like Jiu-Jitsu. And if people, compete in IBJJF, they do less of those heel hooks probably. But actually gi, I think, is wonderful to get your escapes really good because it's more friction. So we do that, gi and no gi, and we want them to be safe. And I don't believe in that you should start doing leg locks at brown belt level or purple belt level like IBJJF suggests. I think the reasoning is wrong. And I think there is a safe way to introduce leg locks and everything else even to beginners. If people want to debate that or argue that I'm willing to do that because I guess the future injury rate will tell the full story. So it's too early now, but we still already do them, and we have a leg lock class in Fridays. So I don't think our leg lock injury rate is actually pretty minimum because of that. But yeah, so submissions, and why we do it, because we want them to know the end game. So we teach them both extremes to know very safe, doing nothing, kind of elbows shut down and stuff. They know what to do, and the end range is usually the most easy to teach. Because that's it, there's no after that tap, there's nothing. Sometimes very difficult to teach. Then the beginner's course should be like 6 months, whatever. Then I would change my mind about that. But if it's very short, you want to get people in. So it's very hard to teach people, let's say, half guard. Because if people have no context of why it exists even, why half guard happens, then why you want to pass even half guard. So why are we doing this, yeah? So what is open guard? Why actually guard passing is important? I don't think it is. I think you have leg locks and you have upper body attacks, and then guard passing happens when you change between them, So IBJJF has made a thing out of that, but I actually think in a way carried on style of just jumping to upper body, like we see in competition these days. They jump to upper body with guillotines and then roll over, or kimuras, or passing is also necessary. I'm not saying about that, but I'm teaching more how to see jiu-jitsu, and then passing just happens because you want to get to one position to other position. It's easy to teach because there's the armbar, and you start from the end. We teach from the backwards method. Teach the end first, and then we move backwards, and then depends on everybody's skills. So some people can add more backwards technique. Some maybe only do 2 steps because that's their level. Some have done more because some have done maybe 5 classes before somebody's first class. So their coordination is already better, so they can I can show them extra steps in the class if they need to. And then they progressively drill with resistance. So, and they understand why they're doing this because it's familiar visually with UFC and everything else. And they know the reasoning. And so they don't understand the context, how jiu-jitsu works. And if you start to teach them in a middle kind of section of jiu-jitsu, that's necessary, but they don't understand. So you're giving them a solution to the problem they don't have. And with submissions, it's interesting when they start to roll, they're actually dangerous because they're hunting. The only thing they do is hunt submissions. And it's not like going to tap people left and right, but you feel their intent is dangerous, that they're not looking for position. They want to actually tap you. So they're looking for a head and darts, and they're not succeeding because they haven't done it for long, whatever. But it's different to roll with them. And then by rolling with this, because of course they're going to miss. They don't understand if the guard happens, you have leg here, how do I get to the head if I'm in front of the legs? So they might jump to leg locks, but now they're interested how do I get past the legs? So now it's time to introduce passing because now they understand the reasoning for that. And so it's about one extreme is defending, one extreme is attacking, and then we're building the context between. And then they understand the context even better because they have a reasoning. And also we've seen already beginner's course finishers, tapping people, and I actually had a main group and we were doing Tarikaplata defenses for 2 weeks. And then the guys I was like, a lot of people don't know Tarikaplata, it's a kind of special lock in that sense, considered maybe fundamental, maybe by some people. But then beginners guys were like, yeah, we have done this in a beginner's course. Everybody was like, what? And because people don't know that. And now we did it 2 weeks. And a different topic is totally that you can tap into later. But if you want, if it's 3.5 months, I've only taught defense right now. And everybody's attack's gone good. Because I only taught defense like basically 3 months of hawking. That's a different, just as a side note. But I did in main group as an experiment also. So that's what we changed, the beginner's course. And we're experimenting, seeing how it works. But we already like, and Ronald, that's my fellow black belt that's teaching this, he likes it because it's very clear what their objective is. Otherwise, let's say, if you do half guard passing, first of all, you have to make them stay in half guard. So they have to kind of figure it out. Then they go, let's say, past half guard to mount. Then you have to tell them how to stay in mount because they have no context of mount even. So what is the mount? Why I'm going there? So there's so many empty slots. But with armbar, it's like, I do this and it's tap and I win and you lose and we progressively drill. And then I just move away from submission. So it's more interesting to get. And it's not like people can go 5 steps away from submission. They're still beginners, So, but some steps, they go away from submission. And then I like it. I really think the trade-off is there because, let's say, if somebody goes, but beginners need sweeps and stuff, but you have 100 sweeps. Which 5 sweeps you're going to tell them, Because they actually need, let's say, minimal 20 sweeps. But you don't have time to teach them 20 sweeps from butterfly guard, close guard, disc. So you're still going to teach them not optimal amount. And I guess the idea of sweeps is maybe important, that they understand top and bottom switching. But it's still going to not be enough that you just show them random sweep and they can't pull it off. And also, I don't like random sweeps because it teaches everybody the one thing, But I want to create diversity. So then I have to teach, a lot of sweeps because then everybody can pick up different things. By teaching submissions, I create diversity. By teaching only, let's say, 5 sweeps, I'm going to make people the same. I guess you can argue that some sweeps are more important, like flower sweeps and stuff. But also, I don't believe so much in close guard because I think it's not, the evidence shows that in competition, it's not there. Mostly it's open guard games anyway. And to teaching people close guard in the beginning, I think it's a false positive reaction because you get arm bars because they just suck at close guard. But actually, they should get good in open guard very fast. So for a future, what would they need? Because if they get good at close guard, I actually hinder their development in a way, I think. So that's kind of like a blabbering thought about why we did this. And it's really 20 classes and we didn't miss any submissions. We wanted to add. So we're monitoring this, I guess, 6 months experiment, many people come through. And then we'll see how more average people will look, So yeah, that's about that.
Well, I guess that is maybe a bit surprising for some people who would think you're only known for Defensive BJJ, which is, of course, your own website, defensivebjj.com, and that you're actually then, for the beginners, just focusing a lot on, you said you had the portion of defense at the start where you show your postures, but then just showing them attacks is a very interesting way of doing it. And then that portion of purely defensive work for 2 or 3 months, I think it was, that was with your main group, like your intermediates or...
But actually, what 2 of them, the beginner's course enders, finishers, have the people have complimented their defense already. Because if they're in trouble, they just shut down the elbows and they pummel everything out. And already people don't expect beginners after a beginner's course just to have that structure. They still get submitted, but they know what they do, and it's easy to fix because, just hawking's better, running man better. They have a structure that higher belts can fix. It's still mistakes, it's obvious. I also talked to, there's a BJJ and Bruise, I think, one podcast I did. So the host was actually laughing when I said that I'm all about the attack. And in a way, I don't think he's actually wrong. And it's like, you can play with the words, yeah, it's all about the attack. But actually, I was in Sweden right now doing seminars. In Norrköping, we did 6 hours of back defense. Yeah, back hawking 2.0 against back controls. It's really, really awesome information. Actually, it's weird. I'm not saying it to hype it. It's weird. And everybody's back attacks got better because there's no point talking about back controls and everything if defender is an idiot, You don't know why you're doing things. And you don't know even if you do them right because defender is an idiot. Let's say, the sequence that say I roll you from turtle, you fall over, and then you go belly down, like let's say Marcelo style, belly down, you switch the side, come up again, do it again, yeah? I can ruin that sequence with hawking. I really can ruin that. And then it's a sport, we win and lose. But hawking answers that all. So we went over defensively what I have to do to cancel that loop, because you can go again, re-back take. I can cancel that loop with 5 steps. If you can do this, I roll over, you go belly down, you get to the back of your knees, you do a re-back take. That's like 5 mistakes from my part in a row. It seems like a small move as attacking, but that's 5 major mistakes from my part, if you're able to do that. And I still stand by that statement. So by defensively doing this, it was interesting later to drill, because now people knew what they fought for, why they're winning, why they're losing. And even the people that knew back takes, they were interested again of those boring old back takes they knew, because the defense was there. And now the hooks and getting people to the, underhook downside and stuff was really hard, because defender wasn't an idiot. So by doing defense, I had to, talk about what the back taker does, but I didn't teach back takes. I just said this, your goal is this, and then figured out how you get there. And then people found out their ways, and back control got better because they were defending the right thing or attacking the right thing. And the same happened with our last experiment. I'm not fully happy with the result, but I think it was good experiment for 2 weeks. We went in main group, we did Tariqa Plata escapes. That you cannot, I don't think you can find any information about Tariqa Plata escapes in internet yet. I think some people do some random things, but I don't think there's a system out there that answers Tariqa Plata. So I'm up for a challenge. And preliminary information answers are pretty interesting. I'm not going to say we are fully there, but we ended up in different situations. We ended up in a 1 point after 2 weeks of experimenting, that all the roads that we led to 1 point. And now we know what the point to solve. If you solve that point, then we solve, let's say, Tariqa Plata, as a defensive system, not just random moves. But in those 2 weeks, people's Tariqa Plata got really good, because we were tweaking it with hawking and stuff, finding already preliminary escapes and stuff. And then people, just beginners, like white belt beginners, they fixed their Tariqa Plata because they understood what the defender was doing. And we were like, okay, we were not happy with the defensive results, but Tariqa Plata got super good actually on people. They understood the sequence. We did all the rolling stuff and re-Tariqa Plataing. And then I did also 2 weeks of Kimura, hawking 2.0 against Kimura, and Kimuras got good. I didn't teach Kimuras. I just taught hawking, get the Kimura grip, try to finish. And then I did my defensive stuff, circling and blah, 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 going to knees and stuff. And people just had to learn to control that hawking thing and still finish. And they added their own details, and I maybe talked about it, what your goal, get the head, get the shoulder, blah, 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 But it was just, they figured out everything themselves because the motivation is there. But without the defensive ideas and people not doing the right thing, you just Kimura, and then it's after 10 tries, it's boring. Because there's no right resistance, because you just have success. It's human nature to get bored right away. Since the beginning of June, I think we did back escapes for a month. The new ways, we just discovered that hawking 2.0 as a back escapes. And then I was in Iceland camp and in Czech. Then we did after that Kimuras 2 weeks. Then I think we did Tariqa Platas 2 weeks. We did side choke defense also 2 weeks, hawking 2.0. We figured out that. And now we know why we lose and win. And this week, actually, we do a triangle from the side control. We do scarf hold armbar against the hawking. And then next 2 weeks after the Estonian Globetrotter camp, we will do our Plata escapes for 2 weeks. And then I'm off to the trip. I'm leaving Estonia for 2 months. So then I've been teaching only defense for 4 months. And I'm not kidding, everybody's attacks has risen. And the whole group has risen. And if I predict, I already know the results in that sense, but I predict more because I want to test. If I teach on Platas, if I teach defensive stuff, everybody's on Platas gets better. Because they have to control the rightly moving opponent who's going to circle the right way, step over right way. Then they add all the details. So that's the dichotomy that people think that I'm only defense. And I've been actually asked by some decent black belts that why I'm so concentrated on defense, and it doesn't make sense because Jiu-Jitsu is all about attacking. And, my usual answer is, how do you know that you're a good attacker? Have you met the Carrie Tonon-like defense? Have you met Jeff Clover-like defensive skills? Imagine that we can create Carrie Tonon-like defense and Jeff Clover defense in everybody. Imagine your attacking ability has to be taken to that level that you can threaten those guys. Clearly, if you fight, I don't think you can touch those people. So how do we get there? By creating gyms where we can have that defensive ability as a standard, or close to that, let's say, yeah? And then we have to figure out how to attack those guys. Then we can say, yes, let's say I named 2 people, yeah? So maybe there's more probably, Eduardo Tellez and stuff. Then we know that we can take somebody's back who actually knows about everything about back takes. And so that's kind of what I do. And I wanna, in a way, I'm so invested in defense, I don't talk about much attacks. But by doing the defense, I actually know a lot how you would take my back. And so I know what you need, because if people say, oh, Priit, I can't take your back, I can tell them why they can't, because I know what you should do to attack my back. So I can teach back takes, I think, even better, because even if I teach, seatbelt, turtle back takes, I know the defense. I would say best defense, but people get pissed off when I say that. Let's say what I know is a good defense, and I know what you need. And that's why I'm better teaching offense, because I'm not teaching bullshit. Because I teach that if I tilt you in a hip, like people show in a YouTube, pull the turtle, tilt the hip, put the hip on a mat, then I don't expect the underhook, top underhook be open, because they should land on correct running man. Then how do I make it open? So I'm teaching that you tilt the hip, it should be closed, and then you do this, because you want to make it open. So actually I'm better because of this, teaching attacks, because I can't bullshit. Without the defense, or even people knowing defense, I can teach any bullshit submission I want, because the defender is an idiot. But now I know that, let's say even side, no kidding, like a side control, side control, you kill the near side arm, you pin the other far arm, you step over to, triangle. Yeah, if I'm in a hawking, you can't do it. I'm serious about that. If I do a hawking away, you cannot do it. And now how do you set it up? By transitioning, blah, blah, blah. So now I have to go, this is submission. Now we do a hawking, it ruins it. Okay, now we have a sport. And now let's play it. Like saying I'm better teaching attacks because I can be more real. Even not being very awesome in a side control triangle, but I know what the defense should be. I never said it in this way, in that sense, but maybe some people understand me better now. It's a weird dichotomy. Only doing defense, only doing attacks will not get you actually the best in attacks, if that makes any sense. You need a Eduardo Tellez style.
It's got for attacks to be any decent, they have to work against someone who's at least defending partially correctly.
Yeah, otherwise you quit sooner, developing those attacks, because leg attacks, in a world somehow are way more studied compared to upper body attacks. And if you watch Polaris and other stuff, people don't tap anymore people with leg locks so often, because they're slipping heels and doing stuff. And now we have to overcome that because defense is super good. But I'm amazed that we don't see that continuous defensive skills in that sense in upper body. I think in leg locks, we actually see better defensive skills, slipping very dangerous inside heel hooks and stuff, And in upper body against kimuras, guillotines and stuff, it's still defense is there. I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's up to the bar of level of, let's say, leg lock defense. I don't think that people have figured it out. Because, let's say Tarek Plata, I don't know any system that explains Tarek Plata submission escapes. We have systems in knee bars, Achilles, outside heel hooks, with a lot of stuff. So that's what I'm aiming at in the research and stuff. And, so that's the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I think even on your website, on the Defensive BJJ, there was the back triangle, I think. That was the only video I could find about someone even talking about escaping that. So there's still a lot of, even though that move's been around for long enough, there still seems to be a lot of room for people to explore that further, right?
It was really interesting experiment that somebody asked, Priit, what about back triangle? I was like, I don't know. Not there yet, I haven't time to have figured it out. And then we did some experiments. We got to a certain point that also, in a way, I would say we felt stuck, so we had to understand something. But in a way, early back triangles, I don't care. I think if you already lock it in and then everything becomes dangerous, I think there seems to be a ways to turn out even. But, if you get a full guard triangle locked on, there are also defensive skills are, lacking. So usually it has to be earlier, but early back triangles, I think I can answer with hawking and stuff. The evidence is I have already done it in sparring, but not against my size people, but lesser weight, but decent skill people. So that's what the site is for, that Sometimes people actually ask me, what about Priit half guard, or show me something about the attacks. I'm like, the rabbit hole of defense is so deep that I'm not even remotely interested of half guard attacking. Because like you said, what about back triangle? So where's the information about everybody's attacking, going to the underhook downside, trapping the arms, going to it's like they make it seem so easy. It's not. If the defender is not an idiot, it's not easy. It shouldn't be like you can do 5-step submissions. I don't believe in that. So that means defender is not lacking serious skills. So we should aim for Gary Tonon-like style in a way that you just jump into submissions and you have 5, maybe let's say 1-2 mistakes from the opponent. If you watch matches, this is what happens. Nobody passes anybody's guard, but there's like a gazillion guard passing videos, yeah? But then you watch matches, nobody's passing anybody's guard if they don't have a weight advantage. And then usually people, jump to leg locks, from leg locks to upper body, or they jump over the guard in some way, So I think if you watch the evidence and if you watch the information available of what people teach, I think there's a gap. Like maybe we want Jiu-Jitsu to be this, that people pass guards and stuff, but reality is we can't. I think now also I enjoy that somebody was doing some modern guard passing or something, they're jumping over stuff and just attacking the hip more, or not, traditional step-by-step guard passing, more like how to shortcut stuff, because that's what we see also with crab rights or jumping over, or, So I think Jiu-Jitsu looks different when equal guys are there. I'm trying to mimic that more instead of just passing steady, and then, and getting to side control. I also believe it's wrong, because if people would be like Eduardo Tellez, then we didn't have that side control after the passing. Everybody would turtle and invert and stuff. So we only see maybe more side control ending guard passes because people are, let's say, are afraid to turn their back. If they do, they get back taken, and that's why they make a decision, stay more under side control because they don't want to give up the back. So I think that reality is a little bit distorted. If you take like Eduardo Tellez turtle, if you take somebody's Cobrinia's guard and put everything together and you build that person, Let's say Jeff Glover feeling Ruben's like Cobrinia's guard, Eduardo Tellez, the turtle and stuff. And then let's see what kind of person that will be, Gary Tonon kind of stuff. And try to pass that guy's guard. So he has a very good open guard. Then it's like defensive turtle is there, so you never pass. So I think that's better jiu-jitsu, and that's more real instead of just right away smashing to side control with underhook and crossface against good guys. So I'm trying to push more that. So I like that more reality, and there's more evidence also against when people roll, you watch matches and stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of the kind of the areas where you're pushing things forward and the kind of cutting edge of the work you're doing. But one question I did want to talk to you about is one of the more traditional aspects of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the belt ranking system. Yes. I know that you've got the new place that you've opened up. You've got, clearly, as you've described, the very calculated system or program that you're running there with weeks set out as you do. So I thought that I would ask you how you are doing your gradings there, your belt structure, and I guess the main thing that probably people would be interested in hearing is how you decide your ranking levels for each belt that you do have. Big question, I know.
Yeah, so it will be open-ended. The fun part is I don't want to give out belts. I think that it's a flawed system, but it's so strange that actually many people have turned towards me to get their belts from outside Estonia. And that's totally unexpected. Maybe because I'm blunt and I actually want people to be good, or that I don't give out belts maybe easily, but I have actually outside Estonia a pretty decent group of people that have said, Priit, can I get my black belt in a future from you? I'm like, I'm honored, but let's figure out, that there's no straight way to get there, that you have to work. And I guess if you want it from me, I would expect, defensive stuff to be up to par for some degree. That's kind of how I know. And so with many people, they figured out stuff on their own, open guard wise, and I help them with defensively. And if they're there, I give them their black belt, like one guy, Vova from Russia, Voronezh. I worked with him starting at purple belt. He was talking to me like, can I do it? Because I like the way you do stuff and teaching and defensive stuff and ideas. And I was really surprised. And then I gave him brown belt in some point. And then recently, a month ago, whatever, he came to Estonia. So I gave him also black belt. So the belts. So you love them, you hate them, you can't live without them. in our club, many years ago, we were mostly no-gi club. And then we thought we made a change. We started to push more kimono, more gi trainings and stuff. Then people wear the gi. So people like the gi, I guess. There's stripes and belts and stuff. So now I think we're at the point, seems the world is also accepting that, leading by Danaher or 10 Planet guys also, but leading that you can just give up black belts also in no-gi. And you don't have to wear a gi in a day. So first I was resistant to that idea that in the future we gave blue belts no-gi belts up to blue belts. So, and then we kind of said, like, if you want a more, then put the gi on or whatever. So now I don't care. I still don't think that maybe belt is the best representative of the no-gi rank. There should be more. Danaher gives knives and stuff, I'm not going to give access to people. But it is what it is. I think it's the relic of the ancient time. And maybe somebody figures out in no-gi what to do. Maybe certificate, but it's silly a little bit. But the belt, I want them to... Rush guard is too expensive to give people, If you give like 40 euros, whatever, or, you can have your own price, I guess, if you can make them with some tatamis and stuff. So there's always the home price. But it's still more expensive to give up the belts. But it's still silly because you can't wear it. So we give out now belts. Also, if somebody decides not to do gi, we don't force them. Right now, because in our club at the moment... we only have limited classes because we rent times. We don't have specific gi class. In our last club, before all the corona and stuff, we had actually like a specific gi class also during Fridays, where Lisi, now the black belt, Lisi Vaht, also gave lapel things. So I'm leading the story because I think it's important. So what I'm going to say in that sense, that years back we did this, that we don't care what people wear in classes. But some topics we thought that, some topics requires the gi. So we told people do the gi because we're going to do a collar and sleeve guard. Some topics were like, let's say, X guard. We don't care about the gi, wear it. We're going to show you some grips, but you can do it also no gi because I like mechanical grips better anyway. But now also we don't have gi classes right now. And I think during a couple of years, gi has taken off to a totally weird direction in a good way, that it's literally becoming like two different sports. Because everybody's lapel doing and stuff. So if you don't teach people lapel stuff, you kind of don't teach them the optimal jiu-jitsu they should know. And you can keep it more traditional and hate the lapel all you want, but it is what it is, And then in your own bubble, in your club, you can be good off and you can bash people that train lapel and say it's not like fundamental, but you're wrong. So you would have to teach lapel because if they go competition, travel around, they will meet people and they have no idea what to do. And then now there's more, answers also. Keenan has more answers for passing this. And Lucas Lepri, I think, released some DVD about it, how to pass lapel guards and his ideas. So information is catching up a bit. So I'm actually confused at this stage when you're asking me about the belts, that do I even want to teach the gi? Because everybody thinks that guard is better with lapel, And the traditional ones I know, people like still 2-on-1 and stuff, spider. But then I have to teach the lapel. Somebody should be proficient enough to teach the lapel. And I'm too old and lazy to figure out because I have my own mission. So we're also thinking that how much gi we have to do. Maybe we find a person that likes to do gi more and then he takes the lead in that. So we should definitely have a gi only classes only in the future. Then it makes sense because it is a different art and lapel stuff gives you a lot of tools to play with. So that's that. So we don't know what's going to happen in our club, what I'm trying to say. Is it a no-gi club, gi club? We're trying to figure it out. So that's that. So what comes to belts, we are mostly with Ronald. We're holding people back more, I think, than we should. Because to evaluate people, I'm very bad at. It's very easy to say if somebody is already purple belt, above purple belt and average purple belt, it's like, oh, you're purple belt. But when is the level of like high blue and low purple, It's very, very hard to distinguish. And I feel that maybe stripes are helping because it's like a smaller step for people. So 4-stripe blue belt and then, okay, next one, maybe this. In no-gi, it's more difficult because you only get a belt. And I think it's managing risk. It's easier to go from mid blue belt to mid purple, not to go from early blue belt to early purple. Understand what I mean? We're sagging more people to be really sure if they're blue belts because their steps are bigger. Yeah. So in that sense, I like belts and I like stripes. And it's really easy to motivate people. We like the system when we did the beginner's course and base course. And we did 2 stripes and then they go to the main group because they calm down and they get something. Sometimes to get to the blue belt, average person still takes 2 years because they're not training twice a week. They think they're training, but actually our statistics show that they train 1.8 times, average person. So, and that's really sad, but it is what it is, And it still takes, and if you train actually 3 times a week, I think you get there in a year and a half at least. But for average people, they don't do that. So that's knock on somebody. So it still takes 2, and maybe it's too long for people. Maybe they want some feedback, and stripes are better than just telling them that you're doing good. It usually doesn't mean anything. So in that sense, I like stripes. But then when somebody decides only do no-gi, they don't have that. But also I find if people do no-gi, sometimes they're more, let's say, they're less affected by belts. That option, if you just do no-gi, and I like no-gi leg locks and I don't care about the gi, then people are less attached to belts.
They just want to roll and get subs and rip people's heels.
Yeah, that's because, there's been many articles about teaching that, as a new parent, if you give kids always like, if they have to do something to get something, then the motivation to do that activity is wrong because they're always like attached to that praise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess you have to give them sometimes something. I don't think that things should be also earned, of course, but it's always like, do this, I give you this, do this, give you this. And so the self-worth and everything is attached to different things now. So, but no-gi people have less attachment to that. Like I said, you just want to roll. And I think the internal motivation is even sometimes better because they just like the activity. It's cool, blah, blah, blah. No-gi is very sexier sometimes. And with gi, I feel if everybody gets, and I want it too, everybody gets a stripe, then it's, yes, the stripes are there, but also more stress is there. He got it, I didn't get it. So it is a tool that I don't think we've learned to use well, actually. And it also, in some cases, builds more harm than good. So it's very important that the belts are not overvalued in a gym. And I think admire that in our gym, the belts are not valued actually that much. That people get blue belts and purple and stuff, but in a way, I feel at least that it's not like, some people maybe chase the belt and stuff, but most people I think don't. And I know the people that maybe chase the belt or want it, and maybe they're not training at the moment because it is a burden to chase the unicorn, the blue belt. That what do I have to do to get the blue belt? Well, how's your open guard? Fix it, So they always want something magical to happen to them to fix something, the mistakes. Just enjoy class, come, and then fix your mistakes, watch your rolls, film your rolls, get privates, take feedback. It's not that hard. So what comes to belts, I really like there's a blue belt, purple, brown, and black. I think that we can really differentiate that level. I guess some people argue there should be a green belt. If people have trained for a year, they get something. But if you get stripes, stripes also doing the same job. I don't know what is a brown belt because sometimes purple belts are already decent and purple to brown, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's technique. It's timing, it's aggressiveness, it's decisiveness, it's some self-confident. It's something weird.
Yeah, I had this conversation the other day, and for brown belt, my answer was it's got to be you start developing your own game and putting your own essence of jiu-jitsu, bit of yourself into your jiu-jitsu game.
And I think a lot of people, in a way, there's been also articles about which belt is more dangerous and stuff. I still think that the purple belt is the most dangerous belt because you're stuck there. Compared to average jiu-jitsu guy, you're a god. You can kick most people's ass in a gym, but then you can be a threat to black belts, but you're not there. And I think you can be stuck there because your mindset. Because I think, in a way, a lot of purple belts, they get there, they have to change something because certain natural talent get them there. Aggressivity, blah, blah, something else. And now, like you said, they need to start to work on themselves. Go deep, add some game, do this to that. And I find also a lot of people don't want to do that. And it is what it is. Again, it's not a blame or something, but just I love that. There's an obstacle in a way. That brown belt is something different, You're kind of matured or you have done the hard work. You know your mistake or I don't know what it is. So purples. And blue belt, I think, in our gym, we're looking for defensive stuff. They get that pretty well, pretty good. And then attacking comes up. I think for defensive skills, if we have white belts that are super annoying to roll with, and not even exaggerating because just they can be defensively just annoying and they don't attack you back, but just it's hard to get anything on them. And then that's good. That's what white belts should do against rolling with purples or browns or whatever. they balance the equation with their shutting down if somebody goes after them harder. If you want them to play with you, then you have to lose the aggressivity. They open more up, so it's an equal fight. And of course, they recognize you're better. But if you want to play with them, be less aggressive, they open up. If you're more aggressive, they shut down. Yeah. So to balance the equation. So I think if people accuse somebody, oh, white belts, you're so passive, then give them a break. And if you can't get anything on them, it's a knock on you, not knock on them, you know? But usually people, when they criticize defensive stuff. But blue belts are, they're usually solid in that sense that they have an understanding of defensive structures, elbows close and stuff. And I guess they can attack also. And I don't know much how to explain it even more, that what else do they need? And purples are just like, let's say, mid-purples. They're attacking. Their guard is already decent. Or their game is so tilted towards something that they're so dangerous anyway. Like, say, if they don't have a guard, but they're very good at turtle and they still can balance out the game against everybody else. I don't force that standard on them then, because I like exceptions. And I don't think everybody has to be like everybody else. And that's why we have Eduardo Telles, because his coach didn't care that the guy was just turtling up and not developing his open guard. So I don't think it's bad. So some exceptions are totally fine. Most people would still develop the open guard and go the usual route. So I don't mind those things anymore so much. But I guess, defensively solid leg locks, attacks. I don't think it's a specific game in that sense. So if you were asking me, you can maybe define the question better so I can answer it better. And usually they say brown belt is a, unofficial black belt. And brown belt is also sometimes that people maybe stop training also, or I don't want to just give black belt to people to just their brown belt and then just have to wait for 2 years and then you get a black belt. I dislike that thought in a way, but maybe I have to bend my rules a bit. So I still need them to train, whatever. And still, I would say something is missing, I guess, from that black belt, because there will be a black belt then. So I don't think it's time. I hate the time thing, that it's 2 years this, 2 years that, like IBJJF does. I don't think there's many sense. So, and I really struggle to say exactly what it is. Sometimes it's gut feeling. You just see people roll. Oh, it's there. And by randomness, with Ronald, we just watch people sometimes roll and we go like, yeah, that guy should get a blue belt. And maybe it's like even 4 months late. And we start to see that. So, and because I don't have that belt pressure in the gym, I think I can do that. Maybe I'm wrong and people actually stress about it, that why they don't get a belt and why Priit is such an asshole. I don't talk about it after that, I guess. But I don't feel that stress from people, and I don't feel that me and Ronald as coaches are very belt driven and belt hierarchies there and whatever. I don't think we have much any official thing that I'm a Priit. Some people call me coach. Some people call me God. We don't bow each other. I'm Priit, you're you. We don't have much formalities in our gym. And everybody comes like we're buddies, and I'm teaching because I know more than them. And that's about it. If the training ends, we're buddies again.
So I'm taking it some people call you God there's an Estonian joke.
Yeah, because it's a joke taken too far, because I hate the professor. If somebody's listening, just stop calling people professors, I will die with that sentence in my mouth. Just stop using that word in English language in that context. So I get so stressed. So, and I don't like the professor and all this kind of bowing thing and just putting people on a pedestal. So, and I like Priit, I like coach or God. Let's take it even, if you call me professor, so let's take it even further. Let's call me God.
Hang on, is God, are people actually calling you God, Priit? Is that?
Some people make it a joke, some people go like, Meister Priit. And they're like, making fun. I think one person that calls me randomly God, and I like it. So, and mostly some people even call me coach, and I'm like, just call me Priit. I don't like those titles.
I don't know. And I'm not a fan of professor, but I'd probably still take professor over God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's because the absurdity of professor, the title that I've already discussed in many podcasts, that if you want to take it that far, let's take it further then to just show the absurdity of that. I don't mind God, or Master of Universe or whatever it is, So I was in a Wing Chun cycle, Keringsprecht and whatever. And, there's like I guess compared to karate, there's 8th, 9th, and 10th dan, yeah? Like, a little bit like super high level. I don't know in what order they actually said that, on what stage was what name, but they officially call the Master of Comprehension, then Master of Almightiness. I don't think it's in 9th dan or 10th dan. And there was also a third one, officially that stage is called Master of Almightiness. I can call myself God if that's, if they're almightiness. And that's officially written, Master of Comprehension. And then I think that's the English word. And I don't know what the third one. The third one was even maybe more ridiculous. And that's the official stages. So me calling myself God and Master of Universe, I don't think that's too much far from there.
It's probably not, but I see that the problem. I mean, I'm coming from the point I couldn't even joke about if someone called me God. That would get me more frustrated than the professor or the sensei. I'd be like, at least that's just teacher in another language.
Yeah, this is my way just to kill the formality, to make it absurd joke. So people could be free to pretty much call me anything, but not professor, obviously. So that's a joke that's funny to me, but maybe for you it's like, I'm not going to let me call
I couldn't
God,
joke with that one. I picked up that it was a Estonian humor, I must say.
We have the best humor, so it's just the rest of the world has to catch up. So anyway, so belts. And the belts back to belts. So I hate them, I love them. And it's weird that, let's say I've got my black belt, so I'm there. At the moment, I don't feel it's also right to take their ability to get belts away from them, because now we're like, belts are not needed, just do jiu-jitsu, But then it's like, oh, Priit, you got black belts. And now you're taking away other people's ability to get to the black belt because you don't like belts. So I still feel that belts should be there, or something that recognize their level, because I really think that we can recognize, differentiate white belt, blue belt, purple and stuff by level. There's a different section of, some gray areas overlapping with other belts, but mostly we can differentiate who is who. And I usually go with that. So there's nothing specific you have to do. And I guess I will force to a certain degree on balanced game on you, guard passing, this and that, and leg locks. And so but if you really resist, then I don't want to do it, then just stop caring, because clearly you know more. And the argument that I've taken already 6 people, 2 black belts, and you, let's say if somebody is stubborn and they have taken none, and that argument for them is not enough to listen to me, then I give in, because so 4, Lise is 6th, and, Vova, the Russian guy, is, 6th. So Vova did it basically by himself anyway. But let's say I have given 6 black belts out, and they're all different. So I kind of have experienced that I know what it takes to become a black belt, because I have talked to people, I've been around, and I have maybe help people to get there. So that's what I mean. Like, if people decide they don't listen and they know better, go for that. Figure it out, but if you don't mind my experience. So I'm not attached to, and I don't want to change people who's just being, weird. But as a specific thing, I hate belt curriculums. I think hate is the right word. I think it makes sense maybe in a white belt, blue belt level or something. There is no sport where there's black belt techniques, yeah? Think about boxing, wrestling. There is no black belt techniques. So I would guess the better option would be maybe, yes, we have a curriculum for beginners. Yeah, they do 20 classes, we teach them. And maybe, let's say we had a base course in an old club when we did like maybe 8 to 10 months cycle. We went through, open guard and with mount escapes more and everything else. So there was a curriculum because they need to know context more. And then it was a main group, and just Ronald cycled 2.5 years, some open guard stuff, X guards and stuff. So there are techniques bundles, the games that we say you should know. But I don't think after that you reach kind of purple beltish level. I think they just disappear more. So you already have some, and then you can always add new ones. There's different games, but I think if 100 people come in and decide, we end up in a similar amount of stuff, kind of what needs to be. So certain curriculum makes sense, but not as a belt curriculum to show that you have to show me, let's say, 20 X guard sweeps, and then 20 collar and sleeve guard sweeps. And I think that's that bullshit. If somebody wants to debate that, go for it. But I don't think that's reasonable. But I would say as a curriculum that you can teach, you can have a certain bundle that gives them the good beginning of knowledge. that they can play off to certain directions that they tend to go by randomness, their idols, their weight class, there's a competition they're entering, They said no more no gi, ADCC, more gi, But I think it's in the end, it's more blurry again, like it should be. Any art form starts with rules and ends up with just artists breaking all the rules and creating his own way of doing the same art that is different. So in that sense, it follows certain logic in a belt curriculum, but I don't think it should be like sturdy and belt exams. So I'm clearly against those things, because I've seen belt exams and they show, let's say, 100 techniques, but then like if you roll with them, then what happens? Then maybe they can do 1/5 of them with the resistance, or really know them, because the partner was cooperating partner, you just fell over and everything was allowed to happen. So you can argue that it looks good. It looks good in videos when people do those videos. It draws more beginners in also, these cool techniques and stuff. But I think it's a wrong perception of the sport, because when you start to see the sport, we don't see what the evidence is different, so to speak, what the sport is about. So it's false advertising in my mind. And so the question is, how to advertise chaos and uncertainty and 100,000 times doing Kimura in 10 years, not like 1,000 techniques that we show people, flashy ones, So how do we promote boring? It's still same arm bars, still same stuff. So I don't have an answer. So belt structure makes sense. In a beginning curriculum, we have that in a way, we had more groups. So right now we only have beginner and main group. When time goes on, I think we add a base group also, that we have after beginner's course, there needs to be time they spend building context more. Right now they just jump into main group and they don't have a hard time, but I think still it's a bigger jump. So, and now I think we went over across the board. So maybe you ask me some specific questions, because I don't think I also answered. I think it was a vague answer.
Like we kind of covered the all-round specifics. The only specific now I want to get into just is really that God question. First, I want to talk about just maybe then on blue belt, because that's probably the biggest one for a lot of people. You're taking the white belts, going into the blue. So do you have that structured enough? Obviously, they're coming out of their beginners program of techniques or exact, do you have that more specified of what they have to do to achieve that? Or do you have that a day where they all get their blue belts together, or you just, whenever you feel one person's ready, you're handing them out?
Okay, what comes to ceremony, again, I hate the gauntlet. People should stop doing the belt whipping. Again, so we have let's call it SPG tradition, but I think some other clubs do it also. I was part of SPG once back in a time. So they call it Ironman. I still call it Ironman or Iron Woman. I can give out belts also in a class. I feel like that's, Margus, you're a blue belt. But then they really solidify that belt when they do Ironman. And also they're usually in that day when most people come together for those belt, who got the belt. So now we solidify. There's usually some surprise belts also there that I would just give them in that event. So basically what we do, everybody lines up. In most cases, there are 40 people and stuff, but we have future experience. The white belts beginning and then black belts in end, and you roll everybody. And you roll to the submission. So you're fresh first, so white belts first, because they're more dangerous. And then you will die because you get so tired, because always fresh people come in. And then the level goes up, blue belts purple, so because you're tired, so they can also do more jiu-jitsu so they don't injure you. And I'm the last usually. Your belt comes off, usually by rolling 40 people. You die averagely 3 times there, just so exhausted. And then you tap into something, and then something comes back, and you can roll again a little bit. So I'm the last. I will pin you, and then I put the belt on as you struggle in the bottom, and then I lift myself up, then I lift you up, then we hug. That's the only way we hug in Estonia, once a year maybe. That's a good joke. And then everybody usually also comes together. Congratulations. So it's a public resurrection. Publicly, you're the most vulnerable you can be, because everybody carries you kind of till the end, because you can't win them. They're just going to submit you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we won't injure you. So we control the violence and stuff. And you're in our mercy. So it's a very mentally very awesome ritual. And then you get a belt, and that's the Ironman. You do it till the black belt, and then no more. Yeah. And it's a very, very mentally exhausting thing. And after that Ironman, you actually do know what it means to be tired. And sometimes, people roll for open mat and, I'm tired after 5 rounds. you have no clue what tired actually means. And after the Ironman, people like, this is tiredness you talked about. And then no open mat, they still may rest, in that sense, but now they know that they're actually not tired. They just want a break or something, So that's our belt ritual that we have that makes sense as a club activity, nice social activity, building bond activity, and being the most vulnerable publicly in front of your mates. And I think mentally there's so many good benefits what's happened there. And usually I'm talking during that time a little bit about the belt, who gets the belt solidified. So I talked about it. Maybe when he come to classes, what kind of poses did he have? He's still back here. So that's his day, And sometimes we have 5 people doing the stuff. Sometimes if there's more higher belts, we do more separate ones. So that's what we do. Yeah, usually in a class also, I feel a couple of weeks ago we did it. I was like, yeah, those guys are blue belts. Okay, let's give it the blue belts. And then everybody, claps. Then clapping is allowed.
I might bring this up again in a second.
Yeah. So clapping is allowed then and only then. And that's about it. So, but what comes to blue, so I think the level actually seems better when they're defensively solid, If they won't get submitted by higher belts so much, that's already a good sign, And then if they know some submissions, they already can fight. And by blue belts, that's what we're expecting, They can defensively, if they even get their guard passed, that's what happens in blue belt level. You get your guard passed a lot. But what happens then? Turtle, hawking, running man, get back, defend, and then try to get to offensive cycle and try to get to top or whatever. So overall, we find defensively, if we make them solid, people can get to that level faster. And some exceptions, some people, they're having a good time. They're mat rats. They're developing even more attacks. So they maybe defensively not there, but attacking is there. So they can tilt the, scale a little bit differently. But mostly this is what happens to our people, that they're annoying to roll with. And what I've heard also when people visit our gyms from Globetrotters and stuff, and they said that defensively, our average is across the board is pretty high, like as a white belt.
Which is what you want, really.
Yeah. And just one black belt actually was training from Finland. Estonian guy lives in Finland. He was like, this is what you do here is really awesome that across the board is just if you pick any of them, because we just mostly people do nogi in the summer. So he didn't know the level of people. But, most of them are still beginners and sometimes fight and blue belts. And then it was across the board, you always know you have to fight for things. And he was like, but just tell them to not little bit attack more back. And so they should feel also a little bit threatened, so to speak. But I said, you're a black belt, so you're a competitive black belt, and they're like blue belts, so they won't attack you back then. But we had other black belts and purples, so roll with them to get that rush, that you're in danger. So that's what usually people say that expect that. But I think the trade-off is to our benefit, because if you have blue belts and white belts do not know defensively anything and attack back, they get so easily submitted. And actually, they look worse than they are, because right now, having good defensive skills, actually, they can roll with higher level people without getting submitted. So they can roll with more technical people longer and survive and see more technical jiu-jitsu compared to people who doesn't have so technical skill defensively and get submitted left and right and try to maybe avoid rolling with technical people because they get submitted so much. So I actually think that defensively solid people can learn from technical people more because they spend more time with them and they see better jiu-jitsu more often and enjoying rolling with them because they actually can survive, still not attack back, but still play with them, and not have that emotional breakdown after getting submitted 20 times.
I like that.
That's usually very hard So that's the trade-off we are seeing at the moment. And it's not finalized, but the trade-off is that, what I'm seeing, and also it makes sense logically, so to speak. And then, so with blue belts, we're looking for that balance more. Let's say over 60 or close to 60% defensive skills, 65, and then they're attacking a little bit back, some open guards, leg locks, arm bars, they should know kimuras, but more like being safe and safe to roll with, that there's no elbows around flying, left and right, not spazzy, technical rolls, can slow roll. So mostly those are blue belts.
Okay.
So if I would describe them like this.
I think that's pretty reasonable, and then is a good answer on the belt grading question, and then in particular what you're focusing in on blue belts. So we have been chatting a while, so I had some other questions here, but I want to focus back in on that God. The God question.
Go for it.
Because I'm giving the leeway of it being Estonian humor and it being a joke. I can understand that. But in my mind, that's how it starts, Priit. You get people calling you God, and then some new white belts walk in through the door, and then they hear someone call you God, and then you've got a whole class of people, and then that's how it starts, mate.
I understand you completely in that sense. But then it's about club wipe. But I think it's actually, I'm using sometimes philosophical terms so people can call me out if I'm right or wrong. I can call it dichotomy or dualism or something, because it's other people will correct that behavior of white belt. Because everybody knows it's a joke. Okay. And if the white belt is like, what's going on? And everybody goes, fuck it. That he's making a joke. So if they're into the joke, and if we want to fuck with the white belt, like everybody's, this is how it is here. And then we have a good laugh. So I think the community.
That's the part that scares me.
Yeah. So, but I don't think it has happened yet. And actually I just recently, I think, Christian Grauert wrote something to me and said, Priit, you can quote that. And I had in my Facebook that if Priit says like we have to go to a parallel universe where our defensive skills are better, I will follow him. That. So it's like, I love being in a cult. And then I actually said the same thing to Grauert, because Grauert was like, he's doing camps and stuff. And then maybe camp 100, he was like, Globetrotter has to end in some point. It has to end in some point. So the question is, how does it end? But let's go to the moon and do a suicide camp, So I was like, let's go, So I made that joke towards him also. So I think, first of all, when we talk about the cult and joke about the stuff, I think it's very healthy. I think when you can't talk about it, then everything, no, it's just don't, let's don't. I think it's healthy to joke about it, then to make light, so to speak, about it. And also, I think the responsibility is on me that do I get a big head, that do I actually start to take it seriously? But I actually have a lot of people around me that would just go like, fuck off. And I like that what Christian did himself, that there was recently a post about the Globetrotter values, we never pay each other affiliation fees, blah, blah, blah. And then Christian was like, if I ever change those rules or go against those rules, you can say, fuck off, just leave or just, And I would say the same thing, that if I ever start to take myself too seriously, and actually now you do have to call me God, that for every day now. And you can just go like, fuck off. In a way, it's counterbalancing the fear I have to end up like a traditional school. So we make fun of it more, because I don't like the traditional stuff and I don't like the rigid atmosphere. So it's better to, make jokes with each other, talk about even like professor, take it a notch higher, make it a joke even. So make light of a situation and show our environment that, yes, I know Jiu-Jitsu more than you if you're a beginner, because I've done it 21 years. But you are not a white belt person and I'm not a black belt person. In Jiu-Jitsu, I'm an expert. In your life, you're an expert in your life. So we're the black belts in our own different fields. I have like a very awesome professional photographer attending my classes. He's a clear black belt in photography. I should call him professor or master of photography, and he should call me something. And I think we cancel each other out as the titles. So I think everybody, because in the classes, that's why I don't like belts also, because it puts the white belt on people who are actually black belt in life, and it shows I'm a black belt, you're a white belt. And in Nogi, it's different. I'm just there, you're there, we're teaching Jiu-Jitsu, and it's awesome. And many cases in like white belt people, white belts are treated like white belt people, because I get comments, not too often, but often enough, that I'm a white belt, what can I say about teaching method? I'm like, but you're a pedagogue, you're teaching in school, you know that shit. So, but I'm a white belt in Jiu-Jitsu, so I don't know how to, but you're a black belt in teaching, so you can go to that coach, change that, because I know what I'm talking about. So, and that visual white belt kind of freaks out people, because now that, I'm a white belt here, I don't know if I'm correct in that sense actually, but in a way I'm trying to counter that bullshit that we have in Jiu-Jitsu, that kind of traditionalism, the respect that demanded respect and everything else, all the bowing, and you can't ask higher belts to roll with you. There's actually a thing in Jiu-Jitsu. And, the belt countlets. And then if somebody's wife goes through the countlet, then, but don't touch my wife. It's like, what? Double standards now. And so with all the other stuff happening recently in Jiu-Jitsu, the outbreaks and stuff. So that kind of authoritarianism, I'm trying to counter that a little bit with let's make fun of it. Let's be humans. Let's forget that, I'm above you or we equal. I just know more and we're equal people. And people come to Jiu-Jitsu and, of course they've Googled it and they've seen, okay, professor this, professor that. But I'm trying to right away show that it's not going to happen in our club.
I get that, but
yes.
I'm with you on all that until it comes to the joking about calling God. I see that the way you're going about it is taking it in the other direction to absurdity, reducing it to its most absurd form and no, I'm not even a grandmaster, I'm God of everything. My initial hesitation, though, would be, of course, that there's still, even though it's anti-tradition, anti-cult, and it's an attempt to make fun of it, there's still people have still started cults from being counterculture, from being against the man, like Charles Manson, Jim Jones, they're against everything, but it can still happen.
I understand it so it's my job to not make it a too serious agenda, because all the defensive BJJ stuff can become a cult because it's just so defensive and people take it to the heart and they just only do defensive stuff and they don't attack at all. And it's going to be a 10 years kind of style that just people meet, don't do anything, and one person leave, because they felt defended. Like old samurai tales. Have I told you a story that I think we're moving towards idealism, that I love? Let's say old legends. Two samurais comes, yeah? And they bow, they sit in front of each other and then one samurai they stand half an hour and then one leaves. Because they fought all the options, how can beat? They couldn't found any. They didn't want to die, so they left. I think my style brings old samurai culture back in honor. Because imagine that, if two people come in and they're both best in breaking bones, they see opportunities each other to break the bones. But imagine that you meet somebody that you cannot defeat because his defensive skills are ultimate. Then you just go in your head, okay, do this, defend, do this. You don't see any way of beating them, and you just go bow and just leave. So I think my style, is the ultimate samurai style. That correlates with some people and what kind of hate mail I get now. So now it's about me in that sense. That's the fear I have, actually, that some people can take what I say or how I am too seriously and get stuck in time. That's why we have Total 2.0 and some future we have 3.0, because I want that evolution. I don't want to get rigid, stuck in time. I'm actually super afraid of that because it happened to Bruce Lee. If he died and then people got stuck in that time, and that was Jeet Kune Do, and they, basically never evolved MMA anymore. Yes, 100%. So, Helio Gracie we do Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the way he did it. No. That's not his message. He was the rebel that changed stuff, so you should continue changing stuff again. And so I'm afraid of being stuck in time. Being okay, this is it, or this is now the philosophy, or this is what defensive BJJ is, or, people taking it too seriously. That's why I'm calling it research. That's why I'm in my site. I'm just, okay, this is what we think now, and this is my open-ended answer to this, and we don't know what's going to happen. And, I'm trying to forcefully say it's it's an open system and don't put borders on it, that what it can be. So, because I am, in a way, I don't think about it, but I am afraid because I've seen traditional martial arts, a lot of them get in that time frame and they're frozen in time. And if you do those kind of arts, I don't mind if you're conscious and this is what you like and whatever, but that's not what I want. I want movement, and that constant movement I'm not changing because I changed through time. And then, even I think maybe Bruce Lee said or whatever, if you changed with time, you kind of don't change at all because you're constant always with this time, whatever the saying is. So I'm with you because that is the fear. Defensive started stuff with pandas. It was innocent, pandas, running man. But now it becomes a thing. Now it's a defensive BJJ. Now there's some borders. And now it's like, okay, what happens? And now maybe there will be like a defensive BJJ, like a belt ranks, because your in defensive level is here.
BJJ only belts.
Yeah. So like your defensive, like Priit Mihkelson gives you, okay, now your defensive BJJ black belt because now you have this. But then I have to put cap on my knowledge because you can go like, this is what I know is a black belt level. Yeah. But I don't know much. Maybe in 10 years we know more, you know? So it could happen. If I would be weird, it could happen like, okay, like, because it would be maybe good money or whatever, you know, give out like defensive BJJ belts that, you know, like a Gracie Garage. You want to do like, you know, through my site, you want to practice defensive BJJ, put my banner up, do like work with me. I give you a bit, like a belt. Okay, now you're defensive BJJ blue belt. You can teach defensive stuff. And you can claim that it's from Priit, you know, you pay me stuff a little bit and you get more clients in because you can refer to authority. I got it from Priit. And it also looks good, so to speak.
Looks like you're liking the sounds of this, Priit. You're liking the sounds.
Yes. So this is what I'm afraid of, you know. So I'm very conscious of that. And that's why I'm forcefully making light of it and even overdoing the jokes. Because I want that you would feel like it's so out there, the God joke, that you won't let it happen, so to speak, you know? So I need outside help that people will constantly check on me that, Priit, where are you?
I'm going to be checking on you with this one. We're going to check in. I'm going to need a tally just to make sure it's only that one or two people so far, you know?
I have my good friend. I can trust Ronald. That he always call me out. He's like, I'm way over, I think, emotional scale. I go up and down. He's way more balanced. So if I do something weird, I think he will go like, Priit, what the hell?
So for me, that's the Estonian sense of humor. For the Australian sense of humor, if we were to take it the other way or to take it to the absurd level, it wouldn't be going up to God. It'd be going down to some insult like a dickhead or something like that. Yeah. That would be the title that would really cut you back down to size.
You know, maybe some people will do it, but in my head, that made more sense to go just the Master of Universe. And so I think even if I would call myself Master of Universe, you would accept it more than God.
Probably because I'm a fan of He-Man, so that has some cartoon connotations that I could look, and probably Master Splinter, I'd probably, accept.
Yeah, so this is the word you're objecting in that sense, but Estonia is pretty atheistic countries. I think it's pretty atheistic in Estonia. I also think that I accept the burden of, I guess we have some religious people in Estonia. And also in our club.
Didn't even talk about that one.
Yeah, and then if some guy come to the gym and some guy likes to call himself God, so maybe I turn some people off. We actually have a saying in Estonia, trust in me because I trust in God. So sometimes I like to say that. Okay. And then I always have the joke, no, it's I don't believe in that. But we have actually official saying that usu mind, ma usun Jumalasse, that believe me because I believe in God. So that's just referring to authority, you know? So
is this the joke where you get the people to say it and they're talking about you? Is that the joke?
Yes.
Oh, no.
So it's a double me. Trust in me because I trust in me,
now, themselves or Priit?
No, like trust in me because I trust in God, but you can always say that trust in me because I trust in me, because it's me as a God is the same.
When you say the second me, are you saying trust in Priit? Is that, yes. And other people trust in Priit too?
I guess both.
Oh, no. I was down with that one. I was like, you've got the power on the inside. The power's all with you, but it's...
I sometimes very often like to talk of myself like third person or trust in Priit. So, yeah, I'm weird in that, so don't try to figure it out. It sometimes doesn't make sense.
No, it's just from the perspective of taking it in the opposite direction and trying to decultify things or just removing those traditions which perhaps are no longer necessary and trying to modernize, that battle between modernization and tradition, trying to respect the things from the past that have got it to where it is and yet move forward with innovations that can take it to the future and not just throw everything out and just bring everything in on both ends of the things is an important balance to do things. But just for me, the God thing, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah. So, I can always, maybe soon I get the point that maybe I meet a person that front of who that joke will embarrass me. Usually that's the point you like to change things, that right now it's funny, but then maybe somebody you like and everything else, you do that joke and they really take it to the heart and you offend them and you go like, yeah, but maybe I shouldn't use that environment to like pick people out. I also think that if people are very secure, that joke would not even move like believers, they just wouldn't care. But if they're insecure about their belief and then everything about the God, like vegans, whatever, if you talk about something, this, they right away jump on you because I don't know if it's insecurity or whatever. So if they're secure, who cares? What you think? I've made my own choices. I know why I believe certain things or why I eat certain things. That's a good thing that you can take a joke on you, and on your things, what you believe, that maybe it forces you to think that why you do that. And if it really offends you, maybe you should check on your beliefs, that, and be really sure that if everything kind of makes your beliefs stumble, maybe it's not on a rigid legs, so to speak, that I guess there's come also some point when I get over it. Yeah. But right now, because of Jiu Jitsu community and everything, there's more talks about it, mental models, they're talking about it, more about sleeping with students and this professor thing and people using their authorities wrong. So in this light, I just want to talk about it more, that we should, professors and stuff, and let's not use that authority. You have a right to call me, if somebody demands professor, you have a right to call them, whatever they want. And somebody just called me out also, I think one guy that in Estonia that said something like, Priit, you don't like that people say what they should be called, but you say what people should call you,
I get you.
Yeah, but I was like, it's you cannot call me, don't call me professor, call me Priit or whatever. And I tell other people what they should not be called. I told him, like, it's a little bit a joke, that you should know as a person that joining, that title is wrong. That's a fake title. It's not a credited title that somebody just took on themselves. And it means in our world, it means something else. It's reference to something else. And in Jiu-Jitsu, it's a totally different thing. And you should know. And if somebody demands certain, like, I'm professor, and I'm just but call them just by their name. See what happens. Do they just like correct you? Or no, I was like, no, I'm not going to call you professor because you are not accredited by certain academy or government. So you have no business to do that. I will call you coach, whatever the Marcus, whatever name. And do they kick you out then or something? They cannot kick you out. I just refuse to call it. And I will still enjoy your classes. I will respect you. I will pay your money and stuff. But I'm just not going to call you professor because that's the fake stuff, I would just, in my mind, it's just very logical that people could do that. And then people who want to be called professors, they should accredit our sport, or what's the English word, We should have standards, what we should do to get be called coach, or somebody studies or spends times fixing stuff and adding stuff and innovating stuff. Then maybe there's a certain commission comes together, and then decides this person can be called professor, or he has brought up so many world champions and this can be called master coach or something, So then why not? Then I think those people that have done those hard things deserve to get credited for their things and deserve to get pointed out. And I'm all for it. But if just everybody suddenly can be called professor, I think it just discredits actually the real people that actually have done something and puts the pretenders on the same bar with people that are pushing our sports, are creating world champions, whatever, or building clubs or, introducing jiu-jitsu. So this is what I'm against. And it's actually a bigger topic, so to speak.
Yeah. With the professor term in Australia, at least, it's not instructors at universities are called professors. They have to go through a criteria to get the professor title themselves. It then comes with different pay level. They're looked at differently for grants, fundings. It's like you've got to earn that title in the university structure to be called a professor. And so it's even perhaps more absurd that we could just put it on ourselves for, doing jiu-jitsu, even though it's just teacher in Portuguese. But then I believe Portuguese has another term for professor as well. A college professor there has another term. So
yeah, it's a cheating. So They just took one word from Portuguese and put it in English. So, and I don't think it's right. I'm going to stay by that. And I know that people don't like it, but I couldn't care less because it's wrong. I don't think I'll change anything, but that's my stand. And maybe if I start right now changing it, maybe in the future will be changed, because those people who like to be called professor and demanding this, they will just pass, life passes on them. And then new generation comes up that's more free, more this, more thinking, and more, they know already different things. And like Jiu-Jitsu, that you can't really change the old ways. You have to bring up the new ways that just show the old ways are stagnated and new ways are better. You cannot kill the old ways. If I go to every school and argue with every black belt that likes to call themselves professor, I would just waste my energy. But I just want that thought to be out, and you have a lot of listeners. So I think it's an intriguing thought. And always people say about why does it matter, And what that actually pisses me the most off, that just why does it matter? But it does, because it's wrong. And it matters to me. Some things I can also say don't matter to me. I know I can trust that other people will be fighting certain fights because I'm not educated enough in politics, in medicine, so to speak, that I don't voice my opinion publicly about what's going on, in the world right now in pandemic, because I don't know. And everybody else seems to be an expert. So I can talk to a person one-on-one, but I'm not going to talk in Facebook, whatever, because I just don't know. And I trust people that are experts, that know more, that they're fighting for the little guys. That clearly I think there's, not everything is right, so to speak, but I know that some people are fighting for that, and I'm not educated enough to fight that battle. So I have to trust that we have people that are. That's Jiu-Jitsu is my area that I know, and I like to fight for some things. I also fight that I'm not going like rallies against gauntlets and, the professors. But so this is what I'm vocal about. Just stop gauntlets, stop the professor stuff. Defensive stuff has to be there, and it's just people are still why it's only defensive. And just another reasoning and why it has to be there. And it's so super strange that even somebody, I had this BJJ crash course Iceland video.
Watch that.
Yeah, and there's a comments, there's like some arguments to people. And I just, I can't answer that because just, it's so tiring to answer that, why didn't you show any guard pulls at all? Why don't you say people should go there and stay there? I was like, where did I ever say that?
Yeah.
And then it's not like, Priit, tell me why do you like this, or why it's like, I don't like this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's not like, Priit, why you do this?
They've come at you with their mindset already formed on the problems, yeah.
Yeah, because clearly I know that you shouldn't stay there for long, and I know this and I know that. So if I teach this, maybe Priit is an idiot. There's always a chance. But maybe Priit knows something, and maybe there's an angle that makes sense teaching that. And then, because there's black belts, like different degrees, saying like, this is awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then comes one guy, this doesn't make sense at all, this is all bullshit. And then it's like, but what angle it would make sense? Why this and that? And it's a bit frustrating, but I don't take them to the heart. And somebody just called me, this is a bullshit martial art, something dogma happening, traditional.
When BJJ turns into the cultist BS of traditional martial arts.
I was like, what? This is like, I was like so confused that I understand their angle, because it seems like defensive BJJ can be, very narrow field, and we're in our own bubble, so to speak, doing our pandas and stuff. And I understand, but then it's like, what?
Yeah, so I'd read that and made a note just out of curiosity, but then they went on to elaborate, and their idea of what you were doing was misplaced in that they thought like all that you do is the defensive stuff, which was all that you've shown in the video. But obviously, if we go back to the start of this interview, you're teaching attacks and everything like that. But from watching that video, they've got the impression that that's all there was. And to be fair, that's when I had our first conversation with you. That was what spurred me to contact you to be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, but then you're interested, then it's like, okay, but then the first question is, what was the class objective, Okay, that class objective was BJJ defensive crash course, showing you the fundamental postures. Second class was transitions. It wasn't about escapes. And then, but you were interested enough that, okay, what's the angle here that this would make sense? Not that this is bullshit, this is bad. Then it's like, I would want to do like a public debate with those people, but you never know if it's a 12-year-old or if it's just somebody else. And that's why it's hard to argue that I would go like, oh, let's do a Skype call so I can see your face and who I'm arguing with. But to argue with somebody with bullshit traditional martial arts, I don't know you. I don't know what level are you, or your blue belt, black belt, white belt, how old are you? And that's just funny. And imagine people writing this and just putting myself in the position of person writing this. How right they think they are, that they discovered somebody that just teaches bullshit. And when everything I do is totally different, we're tested, doing this. And it's like, just Google, go ask around, watch videos, make your own opinion. And it's so strange. And I'm a little bit sad when this happens because, I cannot win everybody over and I don't have to. And I like that it's haters and there's so I like that dichotomy in that sense. That's what also another, I think some English scientists have said, everybody has an opinion, but it can be also ignored, ridiculed, and just, your opinion doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So you can have an opinion, but it doesn't matter, so to speak, because it's not based on something and it's just like blah. So it's just why? And internet provides that platform, and that's why these days people have more stress. People read YouTube comments. That's what Joe Rogan always says, never do, because, he's still loved by many, but he gets so much, I guess, also bullshit comments. But I occasionally like to read comments and this was the most ridiculous one. I wanted to point it out that I was like, if everything you know about me, that I'm so afraid and all the testing and everything and, how I talk about things. And then, but you're charismatic and people just see you and just go like in your bubble and they're amazed or dazed by you. And, that's go test. This is this. Don't believe me. I always say those things and try to roll with me. So go feel, Then it's like, let's say, jokingly hurts when everything I'm trying to say it's otherwise and then go like traditional bullshit. It's like, God,
all that hard work you've done to break it down.
Yeah. And I also like the comments that some, so to speak, negative comments are making me think that what angle do they see this, Maybe I can do a better job. Maybe I could set something in that video, in an end or in the middle that would address that. We're not going to do escapes this time, but they're there. We should escape right away. So I cannot always cover every corner, and maybe in some videos I don't say it. So, and that's the one I get called out right away, you didn't say anything. You just make people go panda. This is a terrible idea. It's like, and I enjoy it. At least my work is important enough for them to comment. So I can take that. So, and I'm not sad.
I think too, when the video's edited, obviously, it's an 1.5 hour long video. I take it then from 2 sections, but there's also big parts missing, right? Where any of the actual rolling that people are doing is missing from the class or the drilling, right? So then the impression you would get, it is just a lot of standing around talking because all the rolling parts chopped out, right?
Yeah, but let's say you are very reasonable. You go like, I have this, and of course it's taken out. And you wouldn't jump to conclusion you would ask, did you do any drilling there? How did you drill? Blah, blah. You would just, before you say it's bullshit, you would go like, I have some questions for you because it doesn't make sense because I saw this, but what about this? I guess the people are not so reasonable, they just want to say people wrong. I've done those mistakes, and that's why just recently I learned that I should keep my opinions to myself about what's going on in the world. It wasn't like a public, so to speak, like in a big platform. It was one-on-one conversation. But then I found out that maybe I shouldn't have said something. But it was more about I'm holding back my opinions because I don't know. And some people are so sure that what's going on is that what they think. And them not being an expert in any of those fields, they feel this is probably it. I was like, but how do you know? You don't know. You're not educated. So I was like, I don't know, and they know. So I was like, how can you say you know? Because that was kind of throwing them out a bit, and we had an argument in that sense. So
it's a hard thing to peddle doubt for people, I think, to convince people to doubt is a difficult thing. I think then you were trying to tell the person that they perhaps should doubt their own assumptions a bit more, or doubt their own thoughts, or be more unsure. And it's a hard thing to convince people to doubt more, I believe.
Yes. And, I don't know how it ends. And the bad thing is, like, if I'm holding myself back, I'm not saying stuff and not arguing with people and everything, and then somebody believes something, and let's say it's a little bit out there and it becomes true, then it validates all what they know. And then I look like a fool because I was in doubt. I didn't do anything. I didn't fight for stuff. And they always knew inside, But there's like a multiple outcomes here, like whatever happens to be true in our world these days, what's happening in the world. I don't know. I'm agnostic, but sometimes agnostics gets all the heat because they're indecisive. That's not my fight. I don't know what's going on, who's right, who's wrong. And I believe that I have people around me that will fight for my right. There's always good guys and bad guys.
And everyone thinks they're the good guy too.
There's better guys that are more educated. And to be educated in that field, I would have to read so many books. I would have to read articles from this side, from that side. Go to do my own research. What's this? What's that? Why this article? I don't have time for that. So I guess the word "I did my own research" is very famous these days.
Doesn't have quite the same luster that it maybe once did many years ago.
Yeah, but then somebody actually wrote, I think, what means doing research, you know?
And it's like...
Yeah, and then it was like, it's not watching, like, let's say, if somebody wants, let's take it back from politics, but to my video. If somebody wants to just show one video, and then just blast bullshit traditional martial arts, because they saw one video and that was their research, and then they're saying such an idiotic thing. Well, before saying your opinion publicly, like an idiot like this, please watch other videos, watch more, spend time. It's actually quite exhausting. See what I've done, listen to my earlier podcasts. Yeah, and then form opinion, reach out to me. Priit, I saw this, that doesn't make sense, why you did that, blah, 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 and then write me something publicly if you still think this is valid. And then we can see, yes, you did your research and you still ended up with the same conclusion. And if you do, that means I clearly
maybe that's
up.
a good place to wrap this one up.
So I appreciate the talk, and I was a little bit hesitant, because I also said that what we would talk about, it was kind of like, what's there to talk about more? But I think we found something to talk about, and maybe it wasn't so much also Jiu Jitsu related, but more my personality related. So it's like having a chit chat and maybe people getting to know me more, or my other way, different ideas. But I think it was enough about Jiu Jitsu also. Yeah. So it fits the format.
Good. It turned out well. I think, too, we'll have to arrange a time for you and Andy to get back on and go back and forth over the feedback topic. He's heavy deep in the PhD wormhole, but I get the odd messages from him now and again. So,
but is he against the feedback, or what's the...
No. There was a...
What his angle is?
At the end of the last debate, you two found a point of difference in how the feedback should be delivered.
Oh,
I'd have to go back and double check just the exact point where it was. But I would like to tee that up in the future. I'll reach out to him and maybe in a month or two's time.
Yeah, check it out, that disagreement. I think there was also only one time when I disagreed with him.
Yeah, it was at the end that we kind of cut it.
Yeah, so I'm interested what what was the feedback, because everything I see in Instagram, what he posts about, doing, feedback, going back, doing... So I seems to not disagree with him and anything what he says there.
I'll have to double check then.
So that's a good start with that one point if you want to pick it up, if there's something to discuss there.
Yes.
So because it was interesting podcast to talk about person I mostly agree with.
There was a lot of good feedback from it too.
And we played opposites.
So if people want to get in touch with you, obviously the website, defensivebjj.com, you do have the latest BJJ Globetrotters video is out on their channel, which is a good, a crash course for defensive BJJ?
A BJJ crash course on defensive stuff or something. Other one is also Hawking is coming. I think I had 2 classes, so Hawking I didn't do the crash course class, the Hawking one so much. And then the second one is coming, so BJJ defensive side is definitely where I'm at. These days, little bit, sorry guys, less because they're newborn. So the first month has been a little bit finding the rhythm around this new baby thing. And so I'm trying to get back to the horse more. So Instagram is a Jitsvulkan. Facebook is Priit Mihkelson. So still have some room for friends. I have a personal Facebook, not a company one. So I think the limit is 6,000 friends. So I'm at the 4,000, so there's still room. Instagram, Facebook, Defensive BJJ. So I guess Fanatics DVDs, but yeah, to reach out from me, those 3 channels would be the best, I think.
Well, that's been a good chat, and we'll be in touch in the future. And I'll have to check up if any of those white belts have called you God yet. Well, that's going to be the main thing.
Yes. Yeah, maybe you have to do a podcast with them.
Yes. All right. Thanks very much, mate. Speak to you again soon.
Cool. You have been listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Until next time, you can visit sonnybrown.net to find out more ways to break it down.